Welcome to another episode of Patio Pondering, where we explore the expected and the obscure in agriculture and how that affects people's life today. Remember, we're trying to find those obscure roots that formed our people, in particular those obscure roots from our agricultural background that make us the people we are today. Today I have an extremely special guest, someone who not only helped shape my life, but has also built a remarkable career in veterinary medicine. My wife, Dr. Kimberly Smith, DVM.
Hey, everybody.
So this is kind of a two-edged sword for me. It's great to have a guest that has so much experience. It's kind of scary interviewing my wife.
Oh, you can handle it, babe.
But the thing that I really think people need to listen to is how her upbringing in the suburbs of Fresno, California, led her to be start out as a mixed animal veterinarian and a small animal veterinarian here in Fort Wayne. And I think she's going to have some tidbits on her journey that, even though she didn't grow up on a farm, I think she's got some aspects of her life that we can all listen to. So, Kimberly, Kimiko,
Jimmy Joe,
thank you for being with us today.
I'm happy to make the trip downstairs.
It's going to be one of those interviews, boys and girls.
Hang on.
That's right. Okay, so to start from the beginning, as I mentioned, you were born and reared in
suburb of Fresno, which is Central Valley, California. If you're at all familiar with agriculture in California, San Joaquin Valley is essentially the breadbasket of the world, essentially. You name it, the crop, they grow those crops there. I have to say, I did not see a lot of soybeans and corn when I was cruising around in California, but everything else. I mean, the vast viticulture presence in wine, as well as raisins, your row crops, your broccoli, your tomatoes, mushrooms, you name it. Best strawberries on your way to Monterey. That's kind of not Central Valley, but still, you get the idea. Little background on my family. My grandfather started the first utility trailers in Fresno. And that was at the time where they were manufacturing trailers for agricultural use for you name it. Possum bellies, flatbeds, all kinds of things. And that segued into a commercial body sales and manufacturing that my parents owned and ran for quite some time. So we had that kind of agricultural presence or support, I should say, where we're dealing with farmers and helping them use their trucks to get everything to where it needed to go. So for me personally, we had a house in the suburbs. We had a nice front yard with a bunch of big eucalyptus trees, and we had cats and miniature schnauzers, which I made little horse jumps in the front yard and made them jump over. And early on, completely bitten by the love of horse bug. Fortunately, had a wonderful neighbor named Trudy, who was an only child, and so they saw me, middle child of 3, also horse crazy, and so we spent quite a bit of time going out to the barn, rode a little pony when she had her horse. First broken bone, falling off that little pony when I was 11 years old. And it just kind of took off from there. Just the love of horses, the love of animals, bugs, frogs, you name it.
So what was the first thing that sparked your passion for horses?
Just kind of exciting being up there and riding around on them. When I was about 6 years old, every summer, Mom and Dad would pack us all up to summer camp, Kennelin Camp, in SoCal, California, in the Redwood Mountains. They're just above Santa Cruz, and would just do all the activities that had to do with animals, small animals, which was bunnies and goats and chickens and geese, ponies, pony carts, burro packing. If you ever tried to ride a burro in a pack saddle, which is not even a saddle, just a pack, they have their own minds and are not very broke. So then riding and vaulting and all of those things having to do with animals, and pottery for some madcap reason. Got to be creative. So it just kind of fostered over my whole childhood. I mean, that was the highlight of my childhood, was every summer going to summer camp. Little kid out of the burbs, getting ready to go out to ride horses with the neighbor, and then every summer camp was amazing.
So you started in the suburbs, and I know the house you grew up in because you drove past it once or twice, and then the house that you lived in when you were in high school and college. Mm-hmm. Were there any nuggets from that upbringing that you can equate to the life that we've formed for our kids here in the house?
I think it's, having that love of animals and horses, yet never having my own horse, just kind of kept going, even though I went away to high school, Santa Catalina, all-girls Catholic boarding school in Monterey. I did take riding as an activity for PE 1 year. It was rather expensive in Pebble Beach, so we just didn't do that. And I played field hockey instead. And then just put that kind of on the back burner, having access to farm animals and anything like that. So then, the high school was a liberal arts college, which kind of fostered your focus to things like, teaching or art history and literature and basic sciences, things like that. So I decided that after looking at a couple colleges, University of Oregon was a great fit. Go Ducks. And I started my freshman year studying geology and art history and things that were interesting to me. I thought I was going to be a geologist and make jewelry and discover, use emeralds and peridots and peridot, whatever you want to call them, to make fantastic jewelry and weave, baskets and stuff. So, he's laughing. He's like, I can see it. But in high school.
So this is 2 episodes in a row with kooky California girls.
Love it.
We had Mary Marsh Heigl,
God love her.
from
She's
Northern California, and now we have Kimiko from the Central Valley.
Yeah.
Both kooky California chicks.
So one of the cool things about high school is it was in Monterey, and we had access to the Monterey Bay Aquarium. There was a marine biology summer course that I participated in. And boy, I thought I was going to be a marine biologist. And, so I had all these ideas going through my brains with studying mollusks and seals and, all kinds of things. But always that kind of the life sciences were just kind of a natural fit for me. So.
Jewelry maker and marine biologist.
Yeah.
High dollar careers in your future there.
And then art history too. I thought I could be a art historian and, a curator for a museum. I still love art. Absolutely do. So, it kind of came to the time where, mom and dad had this kind of nice, come to Jesus kind of meeting and said, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't know. She's like, and mom's like, you cannot give this woman credit for this because she will take all of the credit. And but she's like, why don't you transfer home to Fresno State? And, you can be an animal husbandry major. I'm like, what? There's a major called animal husbandry? Well, it was animal science. And I'm like, oh my God, I can study animals? That's cool. And then she kind of slides in, and you could be a veterinarian. And I'm just like, how at places can I be a veterinarian? I suck at math. Totally suck at math. I mean, I can add, balance checkbook, but you do a better job of that, babe. Thanks.
Yeah, I say we've been married for over 25 years. You haven't touched a checkbook.
Oh, yes, I have.
Yes, you have.
Just write them out. It comes from somewhere. So I transferred to Fresno State, and then got a fantastic dose of, in my own backyard, here is animal agriculture. the teaching farms at Cal State University Fresno were fantastic. There's this one little area where there's the horse barn, the beef barn, the swine barn, the sheep barn, and then way down there is the dairy barn. And so everything was all in a row, and it was so fun. And there was a rodeo club, and there was a horse show club. But the kicker, when my mom said, "Hey, you can transfer back home," is, and you can get your own horse. I'm like, holy camole, I can have my own horse. Hook, line, sinker, promise a girl a horse, and she'll damn near do anything for you. So transferred home, bought that darn horse. He was a miracle and absolutely wonderful. Taught me so much. And then it just kind of took off from there. And that's really where I started to develop the animal scientist in me. And I'm very proud to say in my last 33 credits of undergraduate there, I had a 3.9 GPA out of a 4 scale. So I was pretty proud of that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So, and then in this whole process of, being an animal science major, was involved in the veterinary club. And when you are looking at veterinary schools, you kind of start looking at all of them. UC Davis is obviously the state school. It was the only state school in California, and to try to get into UC Davis
with the veterinary school,
is darn near impossible unless you have a 4.0 through everything. And let me tell you, that first quarter in Oregon, basket weaving and studying geology, my 1.7 GPA really kind of sucked my total GPA right in the hole. So, applied different places, didn't apply to Purdue because they required calculus. And I said, heck no. See the aforementioned comment about math. And so applied to other schools and got a whole bunch of rejection letters. So, and then I thought, well, what's the next step? And I had a fantastic instructor who got his PhD at K-State in bovine range management, range cattle management, and said, Kansas, look at all the cattle in Kansas. That's cool. So that was applied to graduate school in ruminant nutrition, studying cattle, ruminant microbiology, and very nice, extremely benevolent major professor took me on and really kind of helped me get through 3 years. Yes, 3 people. 3 years of a master's degree. It took a little bit longer than I needed to, but everybody has their time and place.
So what was the first year you applied to vet school?
Oh, it would probably have to be like my senior year as an undergraduate. So that would have been 94.
Okay.
94 for the fall of 95. And so in the whole
Fusobacteria
Necrophorum from a K-State. So my master's thesis was looking at the link between Fusobacterium necrophorum, which is the primary anaerobic bacteria that causes liver abscesses in feedlot cattle, and condemnation of those livers on the processing house floor. So ruminitis, inflammation of rumen due to high grains or and high starch contents were kind of what our focus was in graduate school. Meanwhile, learning and getting to know people that were in the K-State veterinary school, and just kind of that natural draw to vet school. And I'm like, hey, I'm here. I'm a graduate student, and I kept applying to veterinary school there. But they still considered me non-resident. And so I'd get plunked in the big pool of, 500 people for 10 out-of-state non-resident spots. So again, I could probably paper one of our walls, probably the bathroom wall, with all my rejection letters from veterinary school. So, and then I met this really nice, tall, dark, handsome kind of pig farmer guy that changed my outlook on how I wanted to pursue that career. So, you have comments about that, babe? That was by you, by the way.
Yeah, because the one before me was short, dumpy.
Sure. Well, I won't say that. Anyway, so everything has its time and place. I spent a lot of time in graduate school riding my horse. I took him to Kansas with me, really for sanity's sake. And then you and I met and we pretty much finished up graduate school at the same time. So
yeah, we defended our degrees within weeks of each other, didn't we? And then moved to Iowa.
So, yep. Everybody, Jimmy Joe got a job with ADM, and we decided to take that and move to Perry, Iowa, which is a fairly close suburb of Des Moines. So
it's equidistant between Ames and Des Moines.
And that's why we picked that, because I still have the thought in mind that, okay, Ames is where the vet school is. If I decide to keep applying, I could do that. So,
unbeknownst to me.
Well, you don't need to know everything, babe. So then got married. Toby and Shelby came along. Well, Shelby and then Toby came along, and then I was at that point working for AASV, Swine Veterinarians, as the managing editor for JSHAP, their Journal of Swine Health and Production. And, it was okay. It wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. I love the kids, but kind of staying home a lot was not in my plan. I still had this burning urge to kind of, finish my goals and be that, go to veterinary school and be a veterinarian. So submitted an application. They decided I needed extra organic chemistry and some genetics because my genetics was obsolete at that point. It's been several years.
It had only been a decade.
Well,
and it was out, and the genetics was outdated.
Oh, for sure.
In a decade.
For sure. And then they didn't consider my organic chemistry sufficient, so I had to take that 7 credits of organic chemistry and genetics with a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old and you. And it was a really good test for veterinary school. It was a really good test, and we did fine. I did great in grades, and did get that acceptance letter and started veterinary school the fall of 2003. So, 2003.
Holy cow.
So, was it 3 weeks before or 3 weeks after I started? 3 weeks after I started freshman year at Iowa State College of Veterinary Medicine, my wonderful husband was let go from his position. So that really sucked.
But I got to go entertain the group at Anatomy and Physiology Lab.
Yes. So he came to the school several times. So short story through veterinary school, the kids kind of literally came along for the ride. In the same parking lot as vet school was a fantastic child care facility that took great care of them. It was kind of a preschool child care, and I would park the car, drop the kids off, walk to class. So we did that for a good 3 years, and then senior year, it kind of changed things because being on call and having rotations put a lot of miles on the vehicles that we still have in the front yard, by the way. So it took a lot of doing, a lot of patience, and a lot of motivation to get the work done, make my time be very manageable and cognizant of my time at school, and use everything so I could study at school and then be able to go home and parent and be a wife and take care of the family and farm and stuff like that.
You were a non-traditional student in vet school, because of your age. You were 30-something.
33. Started when I was 33.
And you had 2 children, a husband, and a mortgage. And the things that came with it, we had life insurance policies. We had started working with Frank on investing. Mm-hmm. That puts you in a different place than the vast majority of the 20-somethings that had been falling down drunk at Visha.
Oh my gosh!
Right before.
Mm-hmm.
So what was that experience like, being the adult in the room in vet school?
My motivation to be there was different from everybody else's, because I had my 3 years of fun at going to bars and stuff at Kansas State and undergrad. And so I'd been there and I'm like, I'm kind of over it. And a lot of folks in veterinary school had this mentality of, C equals DVM. I'm like, man, I don't want to be a C veterinarian. I want to do the best I can. And so some of them would just be like, oh yeah, we did this and went to the ball game and that game. And I'm like, well, I went home and took care of my kids and studied and studied and studied.
But you're able to adjust your expectations of your education and expectations for you put on yourself for grades to match what you could do, right?
Right. I mean, my goal was a 3.0 to graduate veterinary school with 3.0, and I would have gotten it if my last 3 credits in ophthalmology, my senior rotation, he gave me a C. If he'd given me a B, I'd have just made 3.0. But instead, I ended up with a 2.99.
Oh,
thanks, Dr. Betts.
That sucks.
So anyway,
I didn't know that. That's revelation for me. I had known that a long time ago. I was like, just a 299 vet as a wife. Kick her to the curb.
See ya. Next.
So did that affect your interaction with other students? Not only were you a parent and an adult, but you had expectations that weren't stellar for your grades?
I mean, you click with people that you're going to click with or not.
I don't think that's right, because you had friends that were gunners.
Oh yeah. I mean, I knew a lot of my classmates. In fact, saw 2 of them last week when I went to Western Veterinary Conference in Las Vegas. And I mean, I had great friends and did good study buddies. I mean, having study groups and study partners. Mm-hmm. That was the only way I got through microbiology. There was 4 of us in our study group. Oh boy, that was helpful.
There you go.
So yeah, I mean, you click with people. There's some people you just really didn't click with, like the hardcore horse girls. I'm like, dude, calm down.
Expert in 7 species.
Yeah, calm down. It's okay. You win. You're the horse girl. Okay. So, but I did have and I thought I was going to be equine. I thought I was going to be all equine, but when it came to rotations, you have the NAVLE, which is the North American Veterinary Examiners Test or whatever, to get your license. They test you on everything. I mean, chicken questions, horse questions, dog, cat, all this stuff. So it's not just one species. So I took small animal medicine, surgery, and, food animal, ICU. We all had to take ICU. And that still cemented the fact that I wanted to be equine. So, and then I had the excellent luck of having good externships my senior year. Went to Alamo Pintado out in California. They flat out offered me an internship, or please apply for our internship. I said, thank you. I don't think my husband and my 2 children want me to live in California again as a equine intern, which,
paid shit.
Paid crap. And 1 week vacation a year. That just wouldn't fly. So look for alternatives, but I did some great experiences.
Were you Root and Riddle?
I was at not Rood and Riddle. I went to Wisconsin Equine, Alamo Pintado, Blue Ridge Equine in Virginia, and then Fettered Equine Hospital in County Tipperary in Ireland, who is the primary veterinarian for all of Coolmore Stud, which was mind freaking blowing. This girl had her picture taken with Sadler's Wells. Okay, if you guys know thoroughbred horse racing, which is kind of I love following the thoroughbred horse racing. He is like the bomb. And then Galileo, who is just his son, and absolutely a massive.
Was Giant's Causeway there then?
No.
Okay. See, I know just a wee bit about thoroughbred horses.
And there's a natural phenomenon called Giant's Causeway on the western coast of Ireland. That's what it was named for. But no
shit.
That's right. So it was fun. And but then again, having family really focused what I needed to do after school. And so when I was right before I took boards in November, I was looking through the back of JAVMA, Veterinary Journal, and I'm like, oh, Indiana. Looking at, Grable Vet is looking for a veterinarian. I'm like, oh my gosh, because I had done, I think sophomore year, I had done 2 weeks at Grable Vet with Dr. Miller. That was kind of when West Nile virus was out and about here in Amish paradise, and a lot of horses were becoming neurologic, etc., and came visited your mom. The kids hung out. And so that was kind of cool that I had some experience out here in Indiana. And so that really applied for that job. And it was a pretty darn good fit.
Yeah. That internship, was that the first time you met Ryan? Or was it when you started?
When I interviewed.
Okay, when you interviewed.
When I interviewed, and that was like Thanksgiving. We came, wasn't it? Thanksgiving, yeah.
And then
Christmas time.
Yes.
Yeah, it was at Christmas time. So that was in 2006, graduated 2007. Fun day, graduation day. Because we'd come out and looked at several properties knowing that I had that job with Grable Vet. And I think we saw 4 properties. One was just like way too big of a house. That was the one on Duval Road. Mm. And then one was way too small. And then one was a berm building.
Ursula's house, yep.
That had, oh my gosh, so much stuff in this guy's old barn. Holy camoly. And then this house. And it was and just coming down the driveway, pothole city, mud everywhere. The road was horrible. Down the driveway, barbed wire, T-post for fence. I'm like, oh God, this won't do.
Well, the first time we went to see this house at Christmas time, they had a cable across the gate so you could see it, even though it was a for sale sign. And then later that week, we went to it, drove down a driveway, got down to the end of the driveway, turned around in the small barnyard and said, oh, this ain't for us.
And there was a cow going, hello?
Yeah. So this is December, Christmas time. But then you just accepted a job with Graybill.
Yeah.
And then we came back and Troy Whelan took us around. That was before he had his own shingle out.
Yeah. And we didn't see anything. And we're like, I guess. And it had a small barn that had a 9-foot roll-up door in it. You know, the classic little red barn. And that was it. And I'm like, well, I guess this is what we got. And it was, our barn in Iowa was amazing. It was 65 by 100.
54 by 100.
Oh, God, with a concrete shop. And that's the barn we needed here. However, But
you skipped over the house that we ended up looking at in December that we didn't like, went up for auction. Because they couldn't sell it because they wanted too much for it. And it went on auction the day of her graduation.
Yeah, so the house we're sitting in right now. So, and that was fun because the auction started at 9 o'clock and gavel went down at 9:30. I was expected to be on stage walking in graduation ceremonies at noon. And no joke, probably about 11 o'clock before we were getting ready to leave to go to graduation, I get this call from some lady who wants to buy like the house at the end. So our property has like a little rental house at the end with its own barn. So I wanted to buy that part because it was 3 tracks, 4 tracks.
Typical multi-parcel auction.
We bought the whole thing, all 22 acres, and we were really dismayed that was as large as a chunk of property as we could find, because we had a 40 in Iowa that we had 33 acres of hay on. Mm-hmm. And that's when I really got, and so we're talking about roots, getting your farm girl roots on. Boy, I was making hay when we were living in Iowa. We didn't even talk about that, babe. Me with my Green Acres hat and my sensible shoes.
Yeah, and we won't talk about the first time you gardened.
Green Acres is the place for me.
Yeah, so we would borrow a tractor from the neighbor. It was either a propane-powered John Deere 3020 or propane-powered 4020. The 3020 was great for pulling our hay baler. We had a New Holland 273 baler that was perfect. And seeing Kim on there wearing her sensible shoes and her Green Acres straw hat was kind of funny when I'm standing on
with my sun dress over my bikini.
Yeah,
I was getting sun, by golly. I know how to sunshine.
Yeah, so that's where Kim really got her roots dipped into the agricultural roots, was actually being a tractor driver pulling a hay baler.
Yeah, because raking was beyond me. I didn't get it. It took me a hot minute to figure that out. But boy, I could follow that line of hay on the ground. As long as I didn't have to pick up the bales and hoist them. That's your job, babe.
And the other thing that she was responsible for was labor. Because a bunch of the farm boys that were in her class at vet school would come out to work and eat her great food. And they didn't have to pay them a whole lot.
Well, and like, hey, cash. And they're like, yeah.
Yeah. So they'd fatten themselves up at our house after bucking hay, and then they'd go to downtown Ames and spend the cash I gave them on beer.
Needs must.
You can't believe it. Yeah.
So started at Grable Vet. Moving was interesting. Started in June of 2007. July.
Yeah, July.
Moved in June. Started in July.
Yeah.
So, mixed animal vet, doing some farm calls, doing some surgeries in the hospital. Really had a good experience with mentorship with Dr. Robbins. He's such a nice man. Very kind, very patient, because I knew squat diddly, and trying to make that transition from focusing just on equine to like doing everything else too.
So for context for my listeners outside of our area, we live in a community that is Amish. So when Kim worked, it was mixed animal, and a significant portion of that mixed animal was horses, driving horses, work horses.
Oh boy. And they would wait until it was going south on them before they'd call us. I remember a couple incidences. One, oh boy, they called me out. Yep. We castrated a colt. It won't stop bleeding. I'm like, oh baby. Okay, let's go. How do we fix this? And I'm like, what is the white stuff? And I'm looking at the undercarriage of this poor colt in the stall, and it's dripping. And what is the white stuff? Oh, the wife put flour up there to try to clot it. I'm like, oh my goodness. So took a couple gauze rolls, tucked him up in there, sutured him in place to give him a little, pressure. Just kind of tie it in, suture it in. Poor dude.
So he was testicle free, but not gluten free.
Good old all-purpose flour. It is truly all-purpose. So that was a notable one. Another notable one, a dairy farmer. She's like, she was supposed to calve a couple days ago, and she was showing and pushing, and now we got nothing. Oh my gosh.
Ooh, I can smell that from here.
I put my arm in there and I'm just like, oh gosh, I just started pulling out pieces of putrid calf. And that's how I got rid of that pair of boots, because there was no getting that smell out of them.
Wow. 18 years later, I can still smell it.
God. I know exactly where that farm is. Traumatized. So, and then I trucked along like that for a little while. It was kind of nice because it was the practice in our backyard, essentially. It was just, just right in Grable. We had Grable address. It was just way too handy. And then 2009 hits. 2008, 2009 hits. And the economy goes, so they had to let me go. They couldn't afford to keep me on anymore. And we just went out to visit my sister in Seattle and just kind of, just thought about what we're going to do. And Jim was working for Hubbard at the time. And it just so happened I got a call from, a friend of mine was working, surgery clinician when I was a senior, was working at, he's from actually Fort Wayne, and was working at the local emergency hospital as a surgery resident. And he's like, I went to visit him one day, and he's like, well, I don't know, if I hear something, I'll let you know. And by golly, a week or two later, I get a call, say, hey, we have a position open in small animal ICU and ER. And I'm like, okay. I took that in vet school. I took ICU. So that's how I ended up at Knives, Northeast Indiana Emergency and Veterinary Specialty Hospital. And that was, you want to talk about steep learning curve. Holy camole.
Being thrown to the dogs.
Yeah, I wasn't they probably thought I was the dumbest person on the planet, but I knew other stuff, and I didn't know that you needed to, have a DKA patient with multiple levels of glucose to get them on CRIs to get them past their DKA episode. I don't know that stuff. But I learned. I was there 4 years. In between times, Jonathan decided to come along. That was very interesting, being pregnant and working night shift, weekend, and then the following week nights, 1 week on, 1 week off kind of schedule was horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Not gonna pull punches. It was absolutely horrible. They don't do that anymore. So I think they have figured out that doesn't do anybody favors to have 6 shifts straight. So, but then Jonathan came along and changed our little world for the absolute better. Good golly, he's made us a fantastic family. We don't know what we do without the little snapper.
So you were there for 4 years. Had a little stint in Bryan, but now you've been at Indian Creek since 2014?
May of 2014. So I did small animal in Ohio. I had licensure in both Indiana and Ohio because a lot of the clients from Grable Vet were in Ohio. So we'd go on farm calls in Ohio and, do whatever needed to be done. And so then they had, that was Fountain City Vet. They decided not to renew my contract. Okie dokie. They hired somebody else. And so I was kind of looking around, and Dr. K was at Indian Creek Vet. We chatted, and he's like, wait a minute, you were at Knives. He has history. He has some history with Knives. And oh god, everybody has history with Knives. But we met and we got along famously. So we've been there I've been there for almost 11 years. And it's definitely been a blessing to have that consistency and to build the rapport with the clients. And I have fantastic colleagues, and we have a very generous nature of sharing cases and learning from each other, and it's been a very good experience.
Yes, it's been a great experience. So you've had an interesting background in that your mixed animal practice.
Mm-hmm.
Then you went to the dreaded emergency ICU, which is intense.
Yeah.
And you went to GP. Now you're doing a little part-time work at a urgent care, which is between GP and ICU.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a pretty cool background that makes you really well-rounded.
Yeah.
Does that make you a better vet?
Oh, undoubtedly. Yeah. And I've been working with Southwest Veterinary Urgent Care, kind of filling in a couple shifts a month. Now I'm 3 days at Indian Creek and about 2 days a week at urgent care, give or take. And I see different things there. And again, when you learn something in one place, you can use that information in the other. So working both has definitely improved my, rejuvenated my drive to learn more things and be inquisitive and help my clients and their patients.
Okay. Where did you learn to use super glue? We use a crap out of super glue.
And babe, and people, you don't overthink it. Yes, it's dollar store super glue. So at Knives, they have this fancy, Dermabond or whatever the places they called it. And Marilla's like, oh, this is just super glue, right? Okay. So, those little nicks and cuts and things like that, super glue. Works great. Yeah. So it was kind of new, this Dermabond, and we found that, good old-fashioned super glue, it stings a little bit, so it's kind of nice when your patients are anesthetized so they can't feel that, of course. But
remember that when you try and do it on your toddler.
Just saying. However, truth be told, we do include it in all of our first aid kits we have on the farm and in the camper.
Tractor, combine,
and, with other things.
Yeah. After being a vet for almost 20 years, it's 18. So, yeah, that's close enough. That's closer to 20 than 0.
15.
What is a common misconception that people have about veterinarians?
We're in it for the money. For the love of Pete. You have a doctorate. It would be nice to make a good living. For the love of God, I don't want to die still having a student loan. Oh, that would be awesome. So I can pay off my student loan, make sure my children have good college educations, have a comfortable living. But my God, people think we're in it for the money. If I was in it for the money, I would be an orthopedic surgeon, human orthopedic surgeon, and have a big freaking house on Lake James. Come on. But I don't like bones, and power tools kind of scare me. So I do this. So that's a misconception.
Yeah.
And that we all are huggy, lovey, bunny, fluffy people.
Well, that brings up a point and something that you and I have talked about a lot. Many, 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 many times, and I share it with other people. That to be a veterinarian, you need to be, particularly one that is in the general practice, you have to be a good people person.
Oh my gosh. People, I've heard so many times, and it just makes me nauseous. Oh, I want to be a veterinarian because I don't like people. I like animals. Well,
go to animal sciences.
Fluffy doesn't bring herself in on her own leash with her checkbook. Somebody's attached to that. And I'm here to tell you, it's fun to work on the animals. It's fun to play with the kittens and puppies, etc. But you have to be able to talk to clients, or else you're hosed. You're in the wrong profession. And that is something I didn't realize fully until I got to Indian Creek and had the confidence to be able to talk to people, because by then my skill set was, I knew what I was talking about. I didn't have that classic imposter syndrome that a lot of veterinarians have, that they think they don't know what they actually do know. Imposter syndrome is horrible for veterinarians. and just having confidence in your skills and that, yes, you know something. Or if you don't know it, you know how to go get the information to figure out whatever diagnosis you need to. So working with people, talking with people is by far the most, I think, rewarding part of my job, but it is the most draining part of my job. It is because you're going into the room, you have 20 minutes to find a good rapport with the client, talk to them about the information you're recommending for their pet, so that they understand that you have skills, you have knowledge, you have experience, and this is the right way, and you're not trying to hose them because you're just in it for the money. And to help them understand why it's important we're recommending the things that we do.
Well, and it doesn't help that you are typical of a lot of other scientific brain people that are in veterinary medicine, that you're kind of introverted.
Yeah, for the longest time I thought I was extroverted because I like to have fun and go out with my friends, and that was in undergrad. But quite frankly, I didn't realize how much time I was like hiding in the barn with my horse. and truly and there's a ton of veterinarians, the vast majority, I think, are introverted because they relate better to animals and are more empathetic with animals and understand them, and would rather just study and read, and they're kind of like the nerds, the sciencey nerds. They're not, I don't know very many cheerleaders that are veterinarians have turned out to be veterinarians. Yeah. Nothing a cheerleader, go team.
So we describe that as you have turned into an extroverted introvert.
Yeah.
So how does that affect you and how you manage your time at the practice, manage your staff and your clients, and manage your time away from the clinic?
And I deal with it. Obviously, we deal with it every day. It's, you kind of have to turn on when you need to go talk to the clients and do that. And I have on my coffee cup, I have a sticker that says "Instant Veterinarian, just add coffee" on it. It's like, I'm here to tell you, caffeine gets my mojo rolling. So, you get the ball rolling, you talk to people, and you just kind of have to just go and be engaging, be that person that, you want to talk to them, you want to be kind, you want to, share with them what you know so that we can help their pets. But in our clinic, we have lunch break between 12 and 2. And it's a very large kind of house-looking kind of clinic with lots of office space and an intern quarters upstairs. And there's one room that's Dr. Smith's bedroom where I go and take my nap from 1 to 2. and this is something I learned in veterinary school. You're studying, you're in the library. It's okay to put your head down for 10 minutes to brain break, regroup, that power nap. So, and I think I've perfected that power nap. I need it every day, or else I can't. Coming back and having that same energy in the afternoon is difficult. Yeah. We do have several interns that kind of make their rounds through our hospital. We have had high school students. We've had veterinarians from other countries that are trying to get their licensure here in the States that have been there. We have one right now from Brazil. It's very sweet. But part of what we do as veterinarians, and this is also very taxing to an introvert, is you're helping educate your staff. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing a heartworm test every year, even though they're on prevention? And so that takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of energy. And so to continue with your question, what do I do after? I try to hide. I don't want to go home. We're really quiet. I'm so glad we don't live in town, where we could just do what we want to do on our own place. We live in the middle of a section. This house was definitely not what we had thought we needed, but it was exactly the perfect place for us to be. I have my garden, and it's so exciting. It's spring because soon I'm going to be able to go play in the garden and do that kind of stuff.
You work with plants that don't talk back or bite.
Yeah, and I don't feel guilty if they die. I just rip it out and put a new one in.
There you go. So along the lines of you dealing with the public and being an extroverted introvert, why do clients at a vet clinic think that they can say things to a veterinarian they would never think of saying or accusing their GP, their cardiologist, their oncologist of? What's the difference between talking to a human doctor and an animal doctor?
This is a good question. In that, I think veterinarians, I think they're such empaths that if somebody's criticizing me, I must be the problem. I must be imposter syndrome, rears its little ugly head. I must not be good enough. And a lot of introverts are like really kind of quiet, shy people. In veterinary school, we had to do the Myers-Briggs test, personality test. And I was an E, extrovert, which is weird. Mm-hmm. And then have since retaken it, and I'm emphatically an I, introvert. And so I think people put human physicians on big pedestals. That, he's a doctor. He must know what he's talking about. And that has just kind of been the classic perspective of human doctors. Mm-hmm. Whereas, if you look back at the history of veterinarians, they were just, guys that were helping take care of the food supply, making sure cattle and pigs are safe and milk wasn't, helped get rid of brucellosis.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, really. And so now they're seeing such a massive swing in the innovative, nature of veterinary medicine. I mean, we have MRIs, we have CTs, we can do all of these different modalities to treat osteoarthritis and fractures and blah, 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 blah. So we have a ton of things that we have either taken from human medicine and vice versa. Like, dog is a great model for a human. Just look at research with dementia and Alzheimer's. That's something that's very interesting at how that information crosses and benefits humans versus animals. Coronavirus.
TG and pigs.
Well, our everybody's best friend, COVID-19. It's a coronavirus. Well, where did they get the vaccination for it? Veterinary medicine. We had it first, people. Veterinary medicine. Yay. Thank you for creating the human COVID-19 vaccination. You're welcome. So,
is it the softer nature of veterinarians that open them to the criticism?
Oh, I think so.
Or is it because people have this misplaced anthropomorphization of their animals that they'll treat the vet like shit and they won't do the same thing to Dr. McHose in Dallas Center, Iowa?
I can't even tell you how many times I've sat in the waiting room of any urgent care, first care for Parkview or whatever, or even my OBGYN. You sit there and you wait until you're called. But you know what? If somebody's in our lobby and they have to wait more than 20 minutes, they freak out. And I'm like, excuse me, we're trying to be professional. We're trying to give you the best quality care for your pet. You can have some manners. Manners? That's good. I know. I'm Gen Z. Not Gen Z. Gen X.
Geez.
Sorry.
Wow,
but I'm thinking about Gen Z. Sorry. Scared him. So Gen Xers, we're tough. We were 30 years old when we were only 18, and we still think we're 30 years old at 54. So we've kind of been the same thing, And So I think people look at us as like, oh, you're not a real doctor. You only take care of dogs and cats.
But you got a DEA number.
I sure as heck do have a DEA number. Yeah. Well, don't come knocking at my door trying to get drugs.
Yeah, we do not have a supply in the house. There's no supply here.
No. So, I mean, we have all of the same regulatory stuff that, and we don't have all the fun bells and whistles where, oh, gee, we case in point, we have our own pharmacy on our facility because the needs of animals are different than humans. You're not going to use methimazole for hyperthyroidism in a human. You're going to use something different. It's really transdermal. Well, we use that in cats. So there's different species-specific medications that we have to have. We have to have a pharmacy, and we have to carry that inventory. Well, every other physician's going to call something into CVS for you. They're not going to have that, or they might throw you a couple free samples. Here's free birth control from your OBGYN or whatever. It happens. It has had whatever, and so so that's where that classic veterinarian stances come in. We've done it all. We've carried our own inventory, made our own medications, compounding ages ago, and still happens. And people don't understand how important that is.
Mm-hmm.
And because we can't call in all our meds to the pharmacy. Costco doesn't have everything we need for pets. It's not going to happen.
Well, we're at a crossroads because we could go down a lot of rabbit holes.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good thing that you're not drinking wine and I'm off bourbon because we could really could have gone down the rabbit hole of suicide and burnout. We already kind of went down the.
I actually talked about that with some of our new staff members today, and that comes in with that imposter syndrome. Top 5 professions seeing the highest suicide rate: veterinarians and farmers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we could also go down the rabbit hole of the elitism by the leaders in the veterinary community in limiting the number of veterinarians, even though we need more veterinarians. We talked about that yesterday.
Oh my gosh, veterinary schools.
We got so many rabbit holes we can go down.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to say that for another day.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so I'm going to put you on the spot.
Oh.
I'm going to ask you the exact same questions I ask everybody else.
Okay.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So here we go, sweetheart.
Hit me one more time, babe.
What's that?
Hit me one more time.
Okay.
Sorry, Britney Spears, sorry.
There you go. You're Gen X.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
What is one lesson from agriculture or your experience with agriculture that you carry with you every day?
Jeepers. I think everybody has like 18 different responses for that.
Surprisingly, it's kind of consistent.
It has to be resilience. Resilience because in agriculture, it's kind of the Murphy's Law. What will go wrong, what can't go wrong, will go wrong. And we just had a knack, or we have the necessity of just dealing with it. Figure it out. Figure out the problem, fix it, go on.
Resilience. That's a good one. If you could have coffee with any historical figure in ag, living or dead, who would it be?
Talked about this yesterday. I have all the respect for Temple Grandin. I think she is the quintessential animal scientist. Yes, there was a great movie made about her life that I think a lot of people should see if they don't know her. But and I was reminded of her yesterday. I was talking to some of my staff about looking at pets, and especially dogs, kind of, and what are their flight zones? Because dogs, when you're trying to approach them, not be very in their face, because obviously they have sharp teeth, and you want them to be comfortable to come to you. Knowing how herds of cattle move, sheep move, knowing flight zones And she is the one that has brought that into animal science. I mean, that recognition of how when you manage your alleyways of moving cattle in through a building and keeping them calm, keeping them comfortable, my pets are going to freak out if I'm not calm and start reading those signs. Cat ears. Look at cat ears. Holy camoly. Straight out to the side. Oh, you better watch it. They're thinking about something. And so she has really done a lot for animal science, and has, I'd love to kind of get her take on how she would feel about, dogs and cats and other animals.
Well, you're not the only one to bring up Temple Grandin.
Yeah.
And I had an experience last fall when I pulled in the combine down the driveway. We have a driveway that's 0.4 of a mile long, and it borders one of our Amish neighbors' pastures. And he had 2 yearlings get out. So I stopped the combine, and I start walking towards them, trying to figure out where we're going to put them, because what makes sense to us, that square corner, just turn? Yeah, a horse ain't going to do that. So I was trying to figure out what we're going to do. The neighbor kids came over, happened to be Amish kids that were raised on an Amish farm, but not with farm animals, were acting the fool, chasing and running and waving their arms. And I just stopped. And it's like, man, you've got to think about this. You can't run after them. And these were flighty year-old colts.
Oh my gosh.
So they're crazy.
Barbed wire fence.
So Temple Grandin, regardless of your opinion on her, she has made us cognizant, like you said, of flight zones. Mm-hmm. How do we work better? And helped us think about those counterintuitive things, like you walk past the cow or the sheep to make it go forward.
So, and how this relates to how I use that information is, how am I best going to do what I need to do with my patient? I'm poking him with needles. I'm prodding my finger in rude places. And to keep that pet calm and keep that pet not, the next time it walks back in the door, it's having a pleasant experience. There's this, fear-free is a very broad, concept in veterinary medicine about, providing a safe, calm environment for pets, because you want them to have a good experience, so it's less stressful for the animal. They have less problems. You can do what you need to. And so fear-free certification is out there for a lot of veterinary practices and technicians and veterinarians. And I think that's getting bigger, because we're understanding how important it is for our patients to be as calm as possible for their best health, of course.
Well, you're at the confluence of the typical animal owner of the past, Gen Xers and Boomers, that, it's just what you did. We came from a farm, and here's what you did. And now you've got people that
is my fur baby.
Yes.
And they're very, very mindful about, well, I treat that pet that's not my pet. I'm its pet. I'm a pet parent.
Yeah.
And that's fantastic. I mean, everybody has their own way they think about their animals and their background and point of reference. So we just want the pets to be healthy. And comfortable.
So what is one underappreciated or quirky thing about veterinary medicine that more people should know?
We do everything. We have the ability to do everything. So, I had a call when I was at a conference, last week. One of my girlfriends is like, I've got a chicken question. And I'm like, okay. I don't think she was talking about her husband. And I don't think she was talking about with salt, pepper, little butter on the grill or in a pan. So this
is a living, breathing chicken.
This is like, she's like one of my layers. I think she's egg bound, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, and I could have been rude and be like, what's a chicken? Put it in the pan, whatever. But it was one of her girls. It was one of her layers. And I had a bunch of chickens. I'm like, we do feral chickens yet still. And so we do everything. And so have I discussed or learned anything new about chickens in a long time? No, but I know where to get the information.
Yeah.
Yeah. If somebody asks me a question about a ferret, I think ferrets are stink weasels, but a lot of people love them. I love them, and even one of my colleagues, Julie, loves them. And I can answer ferret questions because I know where to get the information, and that is as a professional. I mean, we have our doctorates, and we are trained to not have to know everything, but you sure need to know how to find the information to answer those questions. Yep. And so I think the variety of skills and things that veterinarians do. I mean, water quality. Veterinarians that are in the military service, number one thing they're in there for the military service is water quality, food supply to our troops, and helping in the communities that they're stationed, the animals in that community. I mean, it includes the service pets or service dogs and that they take on for missions and stuff like that. But a lot of people don't understand that. I mean, something as simple as water quality.
Yeah.
That's huge.
What is your favorite ag-related tool, product, or innovation?
You know, that's kind of a hard one because, I mean, you could say something as simple as digital x-ray, and the internet, and I mean, all of those things. But I kind of have to say just innovation in general, being able to, we have all of these drug companies, diagnostic equipment companies that are continually finding better ways to diagnose pets. We now have IDEXX now has a new cancer DX test. People have asked me, "Hey doc, is there a blood test you can test, my dog for cancer?" And before I'd said no, but we can look at the blood work and extrapolate from that. But now I can honestly say yes. And IDEXX, I am not getting paid anything from IDEXX. However, I would happily receive some. However, IDEXX is coming out with a new test called Cancer DX, and it is it uses PCR as well as serology, immunohistochemistry to diagnose lymphoma in dogs. And so, yes, there is a test for cancer in dogs. So the companies that continually make these tools that we get to use, kudos to all of them. And they love to bring us food too. Thank you.
There you go. So the last question is, what is one small change that could make a huge impact in the future of ag or vet medicine?
I think we need to learn to be kind to ourselves. Because as veterinarians, we talked about this before, we beat ourselves up. Oh, we didn't do this. We didn't do that, right? Blah, blah, I could have done. You need to be able to self-reflect and be objective about it. Mm-hmm. Not, oh, why did you do that? You could have done it the other way. I mean, and just give yourself a little credit that you're okay. Be kind to yourself. Had this, this one, what happened on Sunday that just had a lady come in who was absolutely rude to us but expected to be helped anyway. And, I let it just stick in my craw and burn. And I should have said, you know what? That had nothing to do with me. It had everything to do with her, and give myself some credit and be kind to myself and just let it go. And so I think we all need to do that. In ag, you can't help it if it rains or it doesn't rain. And you can't, you can't help how warm the soil's going to be able to put the seed in the ground. And you can't control any of that. And you have to be kind to yourself. And we've dealt with this for years, babe. And just say it's out of your control. Is there a higher power? It's whatever you believe. But it's just be kind to yourself that it's going to be okay, and you haven't failed in any one way.
It's a great one. Be kind to yourself, folks.
And I think there's a kindness push.
There you go. Yeah.
It's just like, less road rage, less people being demanding.
Easy. I get text messages from you about the asshole drivers around Illinois Road on 69.
Stop merging at 45 miles an hour. Everybody else is going 75. Get a clue. So, sorry, that's just my little rant. But hey, be kind to them. Maybe they just can't reach the pedal.
There you go. That's right. Well, Kimiko, thank you for making the trek down the stairs to my Terra level executive suite and recording studio.
You can go upstairs and have a glass of wine.
There you go. I think my listeners will appreciate your journey and the nuggets of wisdom you gave us.
Yeah.
I think they'll really appreciate having a better understanding how you made the transition from being a suburban Catholic high school boarding student to being a veterinarian, farm wife, Midwest. So I appreciate you spending time with me. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, babe.
So my listeners, here is just yet another interview where we dove into people's roots and found out how those ag roots formed them today. We've got a really good one coming up next week that I think you're really going to like. It's going to dovetail really nicely with a lot of things that Kimberly talked about. But thank you for being along for the ride, and I appreciate any follows and comments.